Welcome to the Home Edit Up Your Impact podcast. Today, I'm here with Crystal Riedemann from VAXA. For the past 3 years, Crystal has supported VAXA in bringing microalgae-based ingredients with robust ISO-aligned life cycle carbon attributes into customer supply chains. She's passionate about helping brands move past surface-level sustainability claims and really understands how low-impact, supplier-specific inputs can support meaningful Scope 3 decarbonization and more credible product claims. Crystal has a background in sustainability communications, and she has, naturally gravitates towards making complex carbon science more accessible. She really helps teams understand and see both the climate value and the commercial opportunity behind innovative ingredients. Crystal, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Courtney, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be with you here today. I find this, this industry so exciting. We're right at the cusp of big changes in how we do things with sustainability and with different brands and how the different avenues that we have to take in order to meet our targets. So I love being where I am with VAXA at the moment. I've had an exciting non-linear career, which has basically given me skills that I can apply in various things that we do at VAXA and across the board. I think it's really important that one has all these multiple skills to apply. Otherwise, you become quite, narrow and you can't really focus on the things that actually count. So I quite love the fact that I've got all this experience behind me. But one of the things that I did do that I really apply today is I worked with a carbon credit company for about 7 years. It was one of the largest Red Plus projects. And so that gave me insight into how to work with local communities and how to work with customers who were offsetting their residual emissions and all of the complications that went with that. It was not an easy thing for companies to grasp at the time, lots of negative sort of feedback. So we had to sort of go through all those different phases. Being pioneers, we had to figure out what to do and how to do it. And so I learned a lot from that, which I now apply at VAXA. And I'm very happy to have moved away from the carbon credit side of it and into the supply chain. I think it's very exciting.
What I love about VAXA and when you reached out to me was that I'm a huge fan of technology, number one, of course, because I've been working in tech for so many years, but I love solutions. It's such a fantastic, accessible solution. I would love for you to, in your own words, tell us a little bit about what VAXA is and what you do and who it's for.
VAXA is a biotech company, and we grow microalgae. It doesn't sound exciting, but it is extremely exciting. If we consider how conventional microalgae is grown, we have to think about vast tracts of land, ponds that are used to grow the microalgae, and the runoff that you get, which contaminates it, and all the chemicals that are used in order to try and keep it healthy, and the fact that it only rotates on the surface, so everything down at the bottom becomes all sludgy and disgusting and rots. So if you think about all those wonderful things about conventional microalgae, and then you think of the polar opposite of that, that's what we do. So we grow microalgae in an environment where they are happy. It's closed photobioreactors. We're based in Iceland, so we use very clean water mostly for the thermal management. We use very little water within the system itself, but we use a lot of water that goes into the city of Reykjavik and then back from the city of Reykjavik back to the supplier. And we use that to manage the temperature of our production process. We're also plugged into the geothermal plant, which we're directly adjacent to. And so that means that we use clean energy in our production process through the fact that we are on non-arable land, that we use the clean geothermal energy, that we use very little quantities or volumes of water, that we actually have a carbon negative production process. It's slightly negative, just at that point, it's slightly negative, right? So that in itself is very different than conventional microalgae. And then what we do is we take our waste stream, which is during the production, happens during the production process, and we valorize that. We take the waste stream and we apply it to degraded land in Iceland. And what that does is it regenerates this land, and the regeneration, the carbon stock change that happens within the soil gets attributed to our ingredients. So it gets attributed to all our microalgae ingredients, which can form part of a supply chain in various ways.
What are you most excited about right now?
I think that all of it's exciting. I can see that companies and brands are really trying to do the right thing. I can see that they're taking steps to reduce the carbon footprint of their ingredients where they can. I also think that through a solution like this, we support those ambitions and those targets. But there's also a wall that they hit, right? They need to have the functionality. They need to have the quality of the product. They need to have the formulations that can't change too much, et cetera, et cetera. And what's really exciting about what we do is that it's a drop-in solution. So you need very little of it to have a great environmental impact. And that doesn't mean that they don't take steps to reduce the footprint of that product anyways. They have to do that. But there is going to be a point where they've done everything they can. And that's where we come in. So we feel like it supports the ambitions of companies that really want to make a difference.
When I was reading through some of your material that you sent through when I was preparing for this conversation, what astounded me is there's so many applications. What kind of businesses can use your products and how? Potentially, where do you think are the big, most impactful uses of your products?
As you mentioned, it is quite diverse, but we do need to focus on where we can make the biggest impact. We grow two strains of microalgae. One is Nannochloropsis, and that is for the omega-3 oil. And it's just a wonderfully pure omega oil that can be used either as a supplement or it can be added to pet food, etc. So there are lots of use cases for that. And then the other is Spirulina. So you've probably heard of Spirulina. It's used in juices and smoothies, and it's a superfood, and it's absolutely amazing. But what makes ours essentially different is that it's a very active B12 content that we have in our Spirulina, where conventional Spirulina will have 90% pseudo and 10% active. Ours is in the inverse. We have 90% active and 10% pseudo. So the application of Spirulina can be quite diverse depending on what the goal is. So for example, we work with a pet health company, a very large one based in the US, and they can apply it to support cows. So if a cow eats our Spirulina on a daily basis and they just need a few grams, 2 grams per day per cow, that will help to improve the health of the cow, the somatic cell count. It helps the farmer to greater income. So it's quite a positive impact. We're focusing on animal and animal health. That's one of our applications. Because Spirulina has got a color aspect to it, we extract the blue from it, which is a food grade blue, and that can be added to food and have all the nutrition and nutrients that you would have in the Spirulina itself. So that is another application. And when we extract the blue from it, then we have the remaining Spirulina, which still has quite a lot of impact in it. We extract whatever nutrients we can out of that, the vitamin B, et cetera, and at the end we're left with a feedstock that actually has no use. So it's a waste essentially, and that we can convert into different things. So one of the things that we are doing is converting it into algae-based ink, and that is used in packaging to reduce the footprint of packaging, which is really rather exciting if you think that we've just grown the Spirulina for all these nutritional benefits, and then we're able to do this as well.
That is the coolest, I think. The print industry in general is really ripe for innovation and for solutions. I love that it's a byproduct of your core product, so it's a zero waste component. So tell me a little bit about any of the work you're doing with FMCG industry.
We are working with the beauty sector because they have so much packaging, and that is where a large part of their carbon footprint comes from. We try to align with their sustainability LCAs, which take into account everything in the supply chain, including the ink that is used, including the packaging, including the product inside it, etc. But we're also able to use it in food containers, for example, right? Because it is a food grade ink, can be used on pet packaging, on any kind of a renewable green packaging, and it will be biodegradable, the ink. And so I think this really supports fast-moving consumer goods sector because they can apply it in different ways. It could be part of the product itself. It's got functional value in that. The omega oil, as I mentioned, the Spirulina could be used as a beauty product or within food or a number of applications, and in the ink itself. So we have an environmental impact on the one hand, and we have a positive functional impact as well.
So the functional impact, how does that compare with other supplements that are on the market?
The fact that we actually have a closed loop system, that we have no contamination at all, that we have this bioavailable vitamin B12, which is incredible incredible. The volume of it is incredible. And so you just won't find a spirulina out there that will have the same nutritional value as ours. I think that it's superior in so many ways. We use this beautiful, clean Icelandic water, and we grow it in batches. So it's not a huge pond where everything sort of just gets mashed together. Things can go wrong, temperature can go wrong, and then a batch might be spoiled, and then that gets discarded. But because we do it in such a systematic way, we have greater control over how we manage it. We've optimized it to such a point that it's extremely efficient and circular, as you mentioned. We've got these great nutritional inputs that you need very little quantity of it for it to be impactful to the body itself. So it's not that you need to have a large volume in your smoothie and have a very algae tasting smoothie. No, you only just need a teaspoon of it, or even less than that, or a few drops of the blue in your yogurt. And that gives you, your daily allowance of the vitamin B and essential amino acids. It's pretty incredible. It's also important to remember it's not just B12. There's also iron in it, and protein and essential amino acids, etc., etc. So the iron, again, is also extremely bioavailable, very good for your body. And it would be good for people who are anemic, for example. There's no real chance of overdosing because iron you can take too much of. In our case, because you're using such low volumes of it.
What do you need from the sector? What do you want them to do? And how do they get in touch? And how do they learn more about your products?
What we need is for companies and brands and people within FMCG to actually reach out and ask questions. I think once people start asking questions and start engaging and actually figuring out what we do, that they'll get really excited about it. I would love to invite people who are within the EU to come and have a look at how we do it, to talk to our scientists, to talk to technicians and see the process and see just how pure and incredible it is, to see how we actually apply it to the degraded land with our drones, and how we do the soil sampling to be sure that everything, all the data that we have, the primary data is robust. So, we say supply specific data that they can use in their reporting. This is very valuable. A lot of the time they have to use generic data and it's not always accurate. And I would like to get people to just be excited and engaging. A lot of companies or people within these companies, they seem to say the right things. They don't always follow through. All they need to really do is listen and say, well, yeah, let's learn more about this, right?
In most organizations, it all comes down to the business case. And I think what you've provided, the information that you've shared today, really shows that there's a solid business case for investing in algae as a solution. I'm super impressed with what VAXA is doing, and I can't wait to visit.
We're always innovating. We're always thinking about how we can improve things and how we can make it more circular and how we can help people. So one of the things that we're really excited about, the initiatives that we do, which is outside of our business, but we do it because we want to help communities, is we are currently collaborating with a school in Tanzania. We received an SDG grant from the Icelandic government a couple of years ago. So we're using that to support some school children who don't always have access to impactful nutrition. And we are adding the spirulina into their daily porridge. So we're not changing what they eat. Their traditional food remains just that porridge that is better for them, gives them more nutrition, because they very often are eating empty calories if they are getting any at all. So this is something that we find extremely exciting. And that also means that we get to collaborate with the Icelandic government, with the local people in Tanzania. So this is sort of a good window into how VAXA approaches everything. We approach it with heart and with passion, with a real willingness to work with people, communities, companies who actually want to make a difference.
All right, audience. So if you're an FMCG, either in healthcare or wellness products or beauty products or food products or even pet products, I think that VAXA is something that you need to be paying attention to and reaching out to Crystal to hear more about. Thank you so much, Crystal. It's been fantastic to have you on the podcast.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.